Hello. It is on this day, September 12th, 2022, that I finished Nemesis Games by James S.A. Corey, Book 5 of The Expanse. We're over halfway. I finished this today. Before we get into non-spoilers, speedy disclaimer that my reading pace has significantly slowed down with the school year. I can officially say that. I can definitely tell the reading pace has lessened. And it took me a bit to get back into The Expanse. I honestly thought I would be able to dive right in after I finished Warbreaker, but I ended up not, mostly because of school, but also because the beginning of this book was slow. And this takes us into non-spoilers. The beginning of this book made me worried that this was going to be a boring book or a slow book or a very deep introspective book, and it is a very deep introspective book. But it does not mean that it doesn't have the same intensity of the previous books. So, the beginning, I thought the entire story was going to be like the beginning. No, the beginning was the setup. The beginning was the setup for the insanity that comes after. So, it grew. It exploded. It increased its magnitude. And I really got hooked. Especially towards I'd say about 50%, I was absolutely hooked. And then 70% onward is the I couldn't stop listening point. I've been doing audiobook because I'm in school and I commute every day, so I might as well listen while I'm commuting, kind of thing. But couldn't stop listening towards the end, especially towards the end. It got really towards the end. So the beginning, I would say, was a little bit slow. It was fascinating. It was something that I wouldn't binge read, but it's something that I'm still intrigued to read, if that makes sense. Because we're learning a lot about the characters we've always known. And I'll dive more into that in a minute. But because you're learning new things about the character, you're intrigued. It's just not the rest of the series where you're I need to eat this whole book kind of thing. So that's the state of the beginning, and then towards the middle you start to see it all form. You start to see the plot coalescing a bit, and then again, kind of like the previous book, big thing happens and everything hits. All the development of the book, all of the implications, everything hits all at once. And that was fantastic, and that again was the moment that was oh, I love this series. I really love this series so much. I really do. I love this series very much. It's so good. Because of those moments, but also because of the structure of the series. So that gets us back to what I mentioned earlier. Each of the books thus far have had a structure of having Holden as one of the characters that we're in the perspective of, and then a smattering of other characters, right? No repeats kind of thing, all that jazz. Well, this book technically had Holden and a bunch of characters we were in the perspective of. It's just that those characters happen to be the rest of Holden's crew. And that was the first key indicator when I started the book that, oh, this is going to be an introspective book. This is going to be a slower book, all about the characters. Yes and no. Yes, it's about the characters, and you learn a lot about them as individuals, and it really shows how you don't know these people until you're in their perspective. You really don't. So that's one of the big things about this book is you realize, oh, there's a lot more depth to these people than we thought because we have only been seeing one person's view. But it wasn't slow at all. It was very fast-paced, especially as things started going crazy and especially when you wanted to see the crew together, that's when it started to hit more and more. It was introspective, but it also still had the same intensity, the same battles and levels of everything, and solar system ending events are still very prevalent in this book, along with the introspection. It's just the combination of those factors is just so well done by the authors. Still, it's just amazingly well done. It's so good, and it is so entertaining. It's entertaining. It's scary though. It's the thing about this series is that I love it. It's so entertaining. It's so fun to read. It's like fascinating to read and that stuff, but it's also scary to read because you see so much of how humanity is in the books. Like, it's, I can totally see this being how we would be. And that's the sad part. Like, that's not a good thing, that's a bad thing. And it's part of what makes this fascinating to read, is because I see so much of humanity in it. I see so much of our, like, idiocracy and stupidity in it. And you can see, like, how the different characters see the same humanity in very different ways, and they're all right. Does that make sense? Like, we all reflect on our society in different ways. We all have different things to say about our society. But in a way, we're all right about what we say about society, to an extent. Does that make sense? And I definitely see that with the characters. But it's also interesting to see that how the characters notice different things but say the same things. So one of the key quotes in this book that each of the three of the characters say is different place, same things kind of thing. So I think Amos has a line where he's like, same corners, different people, or like same trains, different advertisements, you know, all that kind of stuff. So all the characters are noticing that, like, history is repeating itself, and that's really what we as humans are. We're kind of repeating ourselves. We're echoing back to the things. And this book had an element of bringing up Earth history a lot in it. Like, not like a significant amount, but it brought up, like, previous Earth battles. It brought up those kind of, like, figures in our history on Earth, and was, like, relating them to how the way people were acting in this time period. And it really sounds, again, like exactly like the time we're in now. And that's the scary part reading the series. It's like 300 years in the future, we got space, we have, like, access to all these planets, we have all these things, and we're still the same people. We still act the same way that we do today. We still have the same squabbles, we have the same wars, we have the same, like, everything. And it's just fascinating to see how the authors exhibit that so freaking well. So I still adore the series. It's still fantastic. And I love just all the layers of complexity in it, because it addresses those kinds of things, but also addresses, like, the new world and, like, new technologies and, like, stressful situations, and also natural disaster, and also, like, the layers of, like, people. No one's, like, an entirely good person kind of thing. It's not like Abercrombie where everyone's, like, terrible people. It's more like no one's a good person. No one is a good person. Which brings me to probably my last non-spoilers point that I'll probably dive into spoilers too, and that's Holden. Holden was the character in the first book that I said... Holden's the character in the first book that I said, like, his flaw was, like, showing the most, and you can just tell that, like, he has this, like, big flaw, but he has, like, sort of good mentality behind the flaw, but it's still, like, a massive flaw that everyone notices. And throughout the books, he's kind of grown on me, because you can kind of see how with his flaw there comes predictable nature, and there becomes, like, you can see his goodwill behind it, and you can also tell that he's been changing as a person throughout the books. Very slowly, but noticeably. So, the point I'm getting at is, in the first book, I noticed that and I was like, okay, he's a character that, like, I'm very shaky with. And the other characters, I wasn't yay or nay with. I didn't have an opinion of the other characters. Naomi, Amos, Alex, like, none of them grew on me because none of them stood out as, like, good, endearing people. And as we go on with the series, like, there's some characters that stand out. Anna, I think was her name. Oh no, I don't remember. Bobby and Aversarla were, like, fascinating. They weren't necessarily good people, but they were fascinating. Stuff like that. Basia wasn't a good person, but also fascinating character. And I'm just looking back at all the books, and there aren't really, like, characters that were, like, great people. I think Anna is, like, the closest you get. Was her name Anna? I don't remember. I think her name is Anna. I might be wrong though. But I think she's the closest you get. And, you know, we only saw her in that one book. We didn't see her again, kind of thing. This book, especially as it dives into the crew, really accentuates all of that. It accentuates that none of the members of the crew are necessarily good people. And all of my, like, thoughts I had before about, especially Naomi, but some of the other characters have now been, like, reevaluated and rejudged. And now I have a very different perspective towards the characters than I had before I read this book. Like, very different. And if I had to tell you which character now stands out to me the most, it'd be Holden. We've gone, like, kind of flipped in a way. The first book, he was, like, the character I thought his flaw was, like, the most, like, shaky. But now I would tell you that Holden's the guy who actually has the most there. If that makes sense? I don't know if that makes sense. But it's fascinating how the way they work with the characters, I've been, like, manipulated back to my original perspective. Also, while I was talking, I was looking at the cover, and I think I can finally tell what the cover is of. Most of these covers, I cannot tell you what's happening in them. But I think I get that one. Interesting. Okay, I'll talk about that in spoilers, because now I'm, like, fascinated by that, because I think I can tell what it is. But yeah, this book really shows, like, how far these characters go, how deep these characters go, and it really dives into their past, but not only their past, but, like, how their past makes who they are at the time in the books, and that is the part that matters. Very fascinating, very good, very entertaining. Very end of the book, I was kind of, like, mentally screaming towards a very particular character, like, and that was the whole thing. So not only was there, like, the emotional and, like, roller coastery trauma of, like, the actual plot, like the rest of the books, where there's some, like, insane things going on, but there's also that kind of plot where you're, like, just kind of empathic for the characters, kind of sympathetic for the characters, but basically you have that dramatic irony moment and you just want the characters to know the truth. And there's that battle as a reader also in this book, and I just love the combination of both all summarized together in this beautiful book. So, amazing book. Spoilers. This is your time to leave. I'm kind of thirsty, but I want to go grab a drink. Spoilers. Balmore? I'm sorry, my roommate, side comment, I loaded up a clip of the Expanse show just to see how Amos pronounced Balmore. And I think he says Baltimore, which is how I say it, by the way. I say Baltimore. But my roommate was, like, pointing out that's, like, Balmore, or however. Off topic. Earth exploded. I mean, Earth didn't explode. Earth had a fuck ton of, like, crazy tsunamis is what happened. And Africa got, like, nuked. But not with a nuke, with, like, an asteroid. But that's pretty much, like, Africa got nuked. And then another one hit the ocean and just fucked up all of Earth. And Earth is fucked. That's insane. Like, that's one of those things that if it wasn't for this book, I would not have actually, like, put the thought into. Like, I know Neil deGrasse Tyson had that talk where he talked about, like, the size of the meteor would cause, like, what was it? This many, like, bounce waves back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. He had that talk, and I, like, touched on it then, but I didn't really take in how bad that would be for humanity until this book, when Earth got pretty much nuked. And it really shows, like, post-apocalypse. Like, instantly. It is, like, that state of level thing. It's such a huge disaster that, like, thinking about how we as humans would cope with it is insane to think about. Like, we have zombie games kind of for that reason, because thinking about, like, how our society would be in that moment is something that, like, fascinates us in a way. I don't know if people agree there, but yeah, thinking about like Amos is part of the story where he's on Earth when that happens, and also like Avasarla's like interactions of like my planet just got fucking screwed. What do I do about that? And being hopeful that her husband lived, which that's a whole thing. Just having hope that people lived when a disaster that big happens and people start gathering their guns and everything. That's insane to think about. And that's just one aspect of the story. That may be the biggest aspect, but that's one aspect. When that moment happened, I was on the bus and I just had like a jaw drop moment where I was like, Earth's fucked. Earth just has like, fucking huge tsunamis everywhere. All the big cities screwed, drowned. Like hurricane destruction, but like on all the coasts. It's kind of insane. Like, it's not kind of insane, it is insane. And it's just something I wouldn't have thought about, like how it would affect humanity until this book. And the thing is that now I have it, now I'm like thinking even more. I think about how it affects all of humanity in this story. And it's like, everyone's screwed. Like, no one benefits from screwing Earth over. And I think that's something that we're going to realize in the next book, is like with Earth out of commission, how rough it is for everybody. Not just the people on Earth, but like all the people in space, all the people on Mars, all the people who are like in the Free Navy. I think everyone's going to realize like how pivotal it is. Or it'll be against my perception, or it'll be the opposite of what I think. And it'll show that Earth is insignificant. But I don't think Earth is insignificant. I think Earth is going to be a very key like thing to helping humanity live, and the fact that they bombed it is going to be significant. That's what I think, but it's possible the authors will prove me wrong. So yeah, I want to bring that up first because that was insane. Them stealing the proto molecule, insane, very bad, very bad. I don't know where it's going, but that's pretty bad. I thought Earth getting bombed was bad, but now that happened, and that's kind of, Mars isn't in a good state either. Mars is kind of like about to fall apart, honestly, itself. Everybody's falling apart, is basically where we're at. And there's a huge question mark on what comes next. Where is this going? Like, yes, all the political leaders met up, but how helpful is that? We're about to find out in the next book. Naomi. Oh, I have opinions about Naomi now. Like, I really do. I think that a lot of the things she went about, some of the ways she acted and stuff like that, are things I'm not going to be able to understand. And I think that's how that's going to be. I'm not going to be able to understand, like, how she could do the things she did, or how she can think the way she did on things. But man, now that I like look back at it, it's like, yeah, Holden's kind of an asshole in their relationship, but Naomi's also not really a good factor in the relationship either. I think now it's even harder for me to like, it's not even harder, I guess. Now it's interesting for me to reflect on how I didn't believe in their relationship at first, when it first happened. Now I believe in it with disbelief, if that makes any sense. So like now I've seen like how the relationship pulls through a lot of things and how it actually kind of works with them. But I also have this disbelief between like how different they are as people. It's kind of interesting how that interaction has grown through the series, I think. But yeah, Naomi had so many skeletons in her closet. And this book really dived into a lot of the skeletons, and it still didn't even go into all of them. There's still so much about her like feelings towards like Marco and like being a belter. And I think that's one of the things in the last book that I started to catch on with Naomi, is how much she thinks as like a belter. And she like notices it, she points it out. She is like pointing it out in her perspective, especially like how she feels at home with other belters, like she shouldn't be with like an earther and those kinds of things. And it's interesting. Like, I'm not going to say it's equivalent because it's very much not, but it's interesting to think about, like, the minor perspective I have of that in my life, where sometimes I feel more at home, like, more like I belong with, like, other queer people or other people that I identify with than, like, people at large. And it's not that I should be, like, antagonistic towards people at large, because I'm not, but it's also that, like, I just feel like I'm a different person when I'm around like-minded people, if that makes sense. And I noticed this with my life, and so when I see it with, like, Naomi, when she's with like-minded people, even if she doesn't necessarily get along with those people, I can see that. Like, there are people in my community I don't get along with, but I still feel more at home there than with, like, whoever's in my classes, if that makes sense. Very weird. Very weird. And this is, again, one of those books that, like, made me actually, like, reflect on that a little bit. So, fascinating. Truly. But, yeah, she has a lot of depth to her. And then we have Amos. Amos had some of his backstory explained, but really not a lot. Like, pretty much most of the things we learned about Amos are things we probably could have assumed about Amos, given how how he is. And he kind of has implied in the past, like, the kind of person he is. This just kind of gave an explanation towards it. We still have no idea who Lydia is. We didn't find that out. We just knew she died, like, she passed, then, like, she had a life and everything, and Amos was like, okay, for her. So we don't know who she was. We just know very meaningful Amos, and that he even has, like, a tattoo of her. So I think that's something interesting to think about. Like, they knew each other since they were, like, kids. Like, Lydia knew his mom, kind of level. So, interesting. Kind of gives me Hendrix and Marcone vibes. Without getting into spoilers. It gives me Hendrix and Marcone vibes, in a way. And then we have Alex. Alex going down his, like, ex-military journey and, like, how he made choices when he was young that maybe he doesn't stand by or maybe he does stand by. He was kind of an asshole. You don't check up on your, like, ex-girlfriend, ex-wife after that many years. You just don't do it. Don't do it. All the characters agreed that he shouldn't have done it. He did it anyway. But, it's interesting how he explored, like, choosing to, like, dive into the military and what that meant to him and how, like, his significance and stuff towards things, especially when he was being attacked, like, how he pulled out, like, some of his, like, military knowledge into his speech, his behavior, into, like, how he handled situations. Very interesting. And all the while, Holden was having, like, his own, like, identity crisis in a way. It wasn't so significant that you could clearly tell he's a different person, but you can tell he's a different person in this book. The way Holden acts, it is very different when his crew isn't around. And honestly, I think it's kind of a good thing for him. It's not, like, a positive thing, but it's a good thing. It's not positive because it's not, like, happy. But it's something that I think it's good it's happened to him, because you can tell he's definitely changed his perspective and he's grown as a person with the other people gone. He doesn't, like, he can't just rely on them to change him. He has to change himself, and he kind of learned that. So I think that's one of the things that makes Holden stand out to me now. Whew. All right, that was a lot. Do you have anything else to say? There's a particular chapter in this that's fantastic. Naomi, like, engineering with, like, all kinds of medical shit going on and, like, no food, no water, like, going through all of that survival stuff was amazing. Like, I didn't want to say fascinating, but I also want to say fascinating. Just following her through all of that really shows, like, how powerful she is as a person on another level. It still doesn't make her a good person, but it makes her a powerful person, and you still cheer for her, especially during those moments, because it's one of those, like, she is fighting for her life kind of moments. It's very crazy, some of the things that happen. Also, I just want to say fuck Marco. Screw him. Screw him. Screw him. Maybe I'm not for Naomi, but I'm definitely against Marco, and that's what matters. And I think the end of the story, it seems like Naomi is ready to change herself. We'll see if she does. We'll see if it's a good thing that she changes herself, because maybe it's not, but probably it is, given her story. We'll see how she acts after this, but it seemed like at the end of the story it was pretty good. And I still love Avasarla's colorful language. It's very entertaining. It's kind of absurd, but it is entertaining. It's fun. So, Avasarla, very much like. And Bobby. Bobby is also very entertaining in this story. So yeah. Interesting. I think we're gonna see a lot of these people again. And the epilogue I need to reread probably. It seemed like the epilogue was the guy on Medina. I might have been wrong, but it seemed like he was the guy on Medina, or he was like by Medina. He wasn't like near any of the planets or the belt. It seemed like he was part of the operation to steal the protomolecule. And it seems like it's a very different operation to the Mach operation, which is what people imply at the end of the book. So, sus. Very sus. Alright. I think that's all I had. Oh yeah, and look at the cover. It looks like a city. This looks like a city. Now that I look at it, it looks like there's like a bunch of like dirt and stuff around it, and this is like a city. So, Balmore is what I immediately thought of. Looks like a city up in flames, and like there's some like tectonic lava shite in the background. Most of these covers don't make sense. Like, I'm gonna look at them again at the end of the series. I think maybe I'm too stupid to make sense of them is what's happening. But I don't know. They're a bit confusing. Like, Leviathan Wakes, it looks like it has a chunk of ice behind the words, which kind of implies that this is the Canterbury, and this is like it hauling a piece of ice kind of thing, but the Canterbury's like falling apart. Kind of symbolic rather than like realistic to what happened. So this one's like the one that makes the most sense to me. This one looks like it's an asteroid on the back. The rest of them, though, I really could not tell you what's happening, especially like Cibola Burn. I could not tell you what's happening in that cover. So, I don't know. Kind of weird. I could not tell you. Alright, anyway, all of that leads into what's new and what is next. I don't have any new books, I don't think. I actually don't remember the last time I made a video, so maybe I do. I don't know if I did this last time, but I do have Elantris. I think I did. I think I said I have Elantris, but if I didn't, I have Elantris now by Brandon Sanderson. That's a very satisfying sound. And that's it. And the next book is Babylon's Ashes. Book 6 of The Expanse by James S. A. Corey. 6 out of 9. I'm at 5 out of 9, but soon 6 out of 9. I just got a message that I got something in the UPS store. I don't think it's a book. What could I have just gotten in the mail? Sus. And I don't know what I got in the mail. If it's a book, then it'd be terrible that I just recorded this and then I would have gotten a book. But I don't think it's a book. We'll see. But next book is Babylon's Ashes. And it seems like it's smaller. Cibola Burn's like the biggest one so far. Oh, it's not smaller. It's about the same. Here. Be faster. Just check the chapter count. Oh, I don't want the epilogue. Ooh, the epilogue. Yeah, it's the same amount of chapters. So, seems like it's about the same size. Interesting. Cibola Burn's been the biggest book so far. Like, I can tell when I look at my bookshelf that it's bigger than the others. That book is fun. Like, Cibola Burn is still probably my favorite so far, but Nemesis Games is also pretty damn good. Nemesis Games now number 2. But Cibola Burn's still number 1. That book was fun. I don't have other words. Babylon's Ashes next. Alright, that's all I had. So I will see you all next time, whenever that is. This has been Nemesis Games. And again, I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.